Good evening. I will now call to order the City County Council meeting for Monday, October the 29th, 2018. And I would like to start with a moment of silence for the victims and loved ones of the mass killings at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Thank you. We will begin our meeting with the prayer and pledge of allegiance led by Councilor Cordy.
Good evening. I'm very pleased and proud to introduce Pastor Matthew Barnes, straight from Council District 18. Matthew.
Thank you, Counselor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we pause this evening to invoke your presence in this meeting. We thank you for the wisdom you so freely offer just for the asking. Our hearts are also heavy with the devastating news of our fellow citizens who have experienced the face of evil in Pittsburgh on this past Jewish Shabbat. We know we live in a broken world, and we ask you for healing. Healing for the hearts that are grieving, healing for the bodies that are hurting, and healing in hearts that are so full of hate. This seems impossible, but you are the God who can do the impossible. We thank you for those who run towards trouble when we run away. Please protect and keep them this evening and always. We need you in our world, in our nation, in our state, and in our city. We know that you love all people. May we demonstrate the love you show us by extending it to others around us. We desire peace in our world. Help us begin with peace in our hearts, our homes, and our spheres of influence. May your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, please deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Barnes. Now please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilors, please select your green button to indicate your attendance. Councilor Scales, Councilor McHenry. All right, there are 22 councilors present. Two have asked to be excused for the evening, Councilor Clay and Councilor Gray. The next item on our agenda is introduction of guests and visitors. Councilors. Councilor Oliver.
Mr. President, it's good to see some of a few of the best and the brightest of our young adults that's going to follow all of our footsteps. Being brought down here by Mrs. Rebecca King and John Spicer and the Indianapolis Youth Council. Please all stand.
Councilor Mascari.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce my favorite niece, Emily McDuffie, and her son, Ewan, and her friend, Duke.
Councilor Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to welcome my AFSCME sister, Miss Georgia Cravey.
The next item on our agenda is official communications. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, you are hereby notified that regular meetings of the City County Council and Police, Fire, and Solid Waste Collection Special Service District Councils will be held in the City County Building in the Council Chambers on Monday, October 29, 2018, at 7:00 p.m. The purposes of such meetings being to conduct any and all business that may properly come before regular meetings of the councils. Sincerely, Bob Osley, President, City County Council. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the laws of the State of Indiana are caused to be published in the Court and Commercial Record and in the Indianapolis Star on Friday, October 17, 2018. A copy of a notice of public hearing on proposal numbers 366, 369, and 371, 2018, said hearing to be held on Monday, October 29, 2018, at 7:00 p.m. in the Public Assembly Room of the City County Building. Respectfully, Sarita Hughes, Clerk of the City County Council. Ladies and gentlemen, I have approved with my signature and delivered this day to the Clerk of the City County Council, Sarita Hughes, the following ordinances. Fiscal Ordinance Numbers 20 through 22, Police Special Service District Fiscal Ordinance Number 1, Fire Special Service District Fiscal Ordinance Number 1, Solid Waste Collection Special Service District Fiscal Ordinance Number 1, General Ordinance Numbers 67 and 68, General Resolution Number 18, Special Resolution Numbers 41 and 42. Joseph H. Hogsett, Mayor. Mr. President, this concludes the official communications.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is adoption of agenda.
Mr. President,
Counselor.
I would like to move to amend the agenda with the addition of Proposal 398, which all councilors should have a copy of, but it may be missing the proposal number, after Proposal 393.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right. The next item, do I have consent for the adoption of the agenda as amended?
Consent.
Very good. We'll now proceed to presentation of petitions, memorials, special resolutions, and council resolutions. And the next item on our agenda is proposal number 393, introduced by all councilors, which requests the Indianapolis Public Transportation Corporation, Indigo, to offer free fares on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018, to support access to polling places. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 393 is a resolution requesting the Indianapolis Public Transportation Corporation to offer free fares on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018, to support access to polling places, whereas providing fare-free access to Indigo fixed routes and paratransit services in Marion County will make significant positive impacts in the ability of Marion County voters to turn out and participate in the 2018 election. And whereas the Indianapolis City County Council recognizes that Indigo currently collects cash fares in the amount of an estimated at more than $35,000 each weekday. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City County Council of the City of Indianapolis and of Marion County, Indiana, Section 1, in order to provide access to polling places for voters in Marion County, the council requests that Indigo operate fare-free on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018. Section 2, the fare-free program may include fixed routes and paratransit services operated by Indigo and its contractors or private sector mobility partners. Section 3, the mayor is invited to join this resolution by affixing a signature hereto. And Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon adoption and compliance with IC 36-3414. And I so move.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an issue that came up just in the last week, and a lot of conversation was had in a very short period of time about what we wanted to do here. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I'm encouraged that we'll be able to use a public transportation avenue to get people out to do their public duty on Election Day. I am a co-sponsor and I am supportive. However, I want to take a look at the results of this particular project this Election Day, and hope that if we were to revisit it again and try to do this again in the future, that we will ensure that all residents of Marion County, no matter where they live, whether in the center of the city, whether in a small rural area outside of where the bus runs, I want to make sure everyone would have an equal opportunity, whether we use taxi vouchers, Uber vouchers. I mean, there are a lot of different ways we can go. But again, a step in the right direction. I'm excited about it. I'm supportive. But I want to make sure if we look at this again in the future, we do make sure that everyone in Marion County has the same opportunity for that free ride to the polls. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Councilor Feaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. I realize that this is a request, but it occurs to me to ask, has anyone checked to see, with the federal regulations and restrictions for Indigo, is this even possible to do?
Please.
This was worked out through Indigo. The resolution was worked out through them
And voted on by their board,
and voted on by their board.
contingent upon tonight.
And that is good information to have. Thank you. I didn't have that before. I will be supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McHenry.
Thank you, President Osley. My district has extremely limited bus service, and this is true not only in the areas that are less densely populated, but also some of my high-density areas and apartments, especially along Crawfordsville Road, have absolutely no bus service at all. And, I'm kind of, with Councilor McQuillan, if we do this in the future, I hope that we do make sure that this is actually accessible to everyone, because most of my district does, I have one bus line that actually goes through my district, and that's in the town of Speedway. People are closer to walking to the polls than they are to walking to a bus stop. So I hope that this is remedied so that people who don't have bus service get it.
Duly noted. Thank you.
For
very
not
much.
only this, but get service otherwise.
Very good. Councilor Mowry.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I do understand the importance of getting people out to vote, the inequalities in service that is provided to the folks of many of the parts of Marion County, such as Franklin Township District 25, is something that I cannot get behind, knowing that we have zero service except for the limited service we do have. Is something I can't support, knowing that we are not equally serviced in this proposal or the special resolution.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes. Councilor Holliday.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would echo Councilor Mowry's sentiments, that is the same effect with District 20 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the board. Councilor McHenry? Yeah. All right. Proposal 393 carries with a vote of 19-3. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 398. Councilors?
Thank you, Mr. President, and councilors, for the addition to the agenda. Proposal number 398 is a special resolution condemning violence and hate speech, expressing solidarity with all those targeted for their ethnicity, race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Whereas the United States is a diverse nation founded on the bedrock of pluralism, where citizens of all backgrounds are called upon to energetically engage across even our deepest differences, not in isolation, but in relationship to one another. And whereas, Jared.
Whereas this council seeks to create in Indianapolis a culture wherein individuals of every background or identity can make invaluable contributions to our economy, our scientific progress, our social and political life, and our culture. And whereas we are saddened and outraged at the abhorrent violence that took the lives of 11 innocent worshipers gathered at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh to observe the Sabbath on October 27, 2008. And
whereas we as a body stand in solidarity with all survivors and loved ones of those killed by senseless, vicious, xenophobic attacks of targeted religious and minority groups. And whereas, as elected representatives of the people, we have a special responsibility to call out hateful rhetoric, violence, and discrimination against any of our constituents or countrymen. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City County Council of the City of Indianapolis and of Marion County, Indiana. Section 1. The Indianapolis City County Council condemns all hateful speech and violent action directed at members of the Jewish faith, or any particular race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or gender identity.
Section 2, the council categorically rejects anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, and bigotry in all its forms, commits to pursuing a policy agenda that affirms civil and human rights, and reaffirms the value of a pluralistic society, the beauty of a society composed of multiple cultures, and the inalienable rights of every person to live, love, work, and practice their faith without fear. Section 3, the mayor is invited to join in this resolution by affixing his signature here too. And Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon adoption in compliance with IC 36-3414, and I so move.
Second.
The motion's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Back to the speakers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really, there isn't anything that I can say about this other than it's just heartbreaking to witness what we've seen over the past couple of days. There's also been the senseless murder of 2 African Americans who left a Kroger the Wednesday preceding this, and what was obviously a hate crime as well. I'd like to recognize them in this resolution too. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 202, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 202, 2018, reappoints Louis Perfetta to the Indianapolis Marion County Forensic Services Board. Mr. Perfetta said that he is an emergency physician at a level 1 trauma center. They see the impact of heroin, opioid abuse, and sexual assaults, and anything he can do to keep resources flowing through the board is willing to do that. Councilor Simpson moved, seconded by Councilor Scales, to send proposal 202 to the full council. They do pass recommendation. Motion carried by a vote of 9-0. Mr. President, I so move.
The motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. The motion carries 22-0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 256, referred to Community Affairs Committee. Chairman Mascari.
Mr. President, with consent, I'd like to take 256 and 329 together. On October 17th, Community Affairs met, and we reappointed John Barth to the Public Arts and Neighborhoods Selection Committee. Also, we appointed Amy Carroll to the Public Art for Neighborhood Selection Committee. All was a due pass of 5-0. I so move.
Motion has been properly moved and seconded. Any comments from councilors? Councilor Feaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully support John Barth, served with John when he was on the council, and think he will be excellent for this, but did want to point out that Amy Carroll is in my district. Amy had the privilege of painting some of the state flowers for the White House. So her artistic abilities are above reproach, and she will serve very well in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. Chairwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 351 corrects the term ending date for Laura Teagarden as an appointee to the Woodruff Place Economic Improvement Board. The proposal passed out of committee by a vote to 8-0. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Motion has been properly moved and seconded. Any comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, we'll come to the board for our vote. Counselor Feaster? The motion carries 22-0. The next item on our agenda is the introduction of proposals. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 387, introduced by Councilor Simpson, referred to the Administration and Finance Committee, adopts an investment policy authorizing the investment of public funds and authorizes the investing officer to make investments having a stated final maturity that is more than 2 years, but not more than 5 years after the date of purchase or entry into a repurchase agreement. Proposal number 388, introduced by Councilor Adamson, referred to the Public Works Committee, approves the issuance of stormwater revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $50 million, and approves and authorizes the actions in respect thereto. Proposal numbers 389 and 390 refer to the Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee. Proposal number 389, introduced by Councilors Adamson and Lewis, approves the 2019 budget of the Woodruff Place Economic Improvement District. Proposal number 390, introduced by Councilors Shreve, Muscari, and Adamson, approves the 2019 budget of the Greater Virginia Avenue Corridor Economic Improvement District. Proposal numbers 391 and 392 refer to the Public Works Committee. Proposal number 391, introduced by Councilor Shreve, authorizes parking restrictions on the west side of College Avenue from Washington Street to Louisiana Street in District 16. Proposal number 392, introduced by Councilor Fanning, approves the declaratory resolution designating the establishment of the White River Indianapolis North Flood Control Improvement District. Mr. President, this concludes the introductions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is special orders priority business. Proposal numbers 394 through 397 are all rezoning ordinances certified for approval by the Metropolitan Development Commission on October the 18th, 2018. If no councilor wishes to call down the proposals for reconsideration, the proposals will pass into law. Does anyone wish to call down any of the proposals for reconsideration? Seeing none, the proposals will pass into law. The next item on our agenda is special orders, public hearing. And the next item on our agenda is proposal number 366, referred to Admin and Finance Committee, Chairman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 366 was introduced to the council at our council meeting on October the 23rd. Yes, it's on. Yes, it's on. Testing. Oh, you want me to get closer? Okay. Proposal number 366 was introduced to the Admin and Finance Committee meeting, the council meeting on October the 23rd. It approved the additional appropriation total $9,223,050 in the 2018 budget non-departmental criminal justice project note, a sub-fund of the Consolidated City Tax Supporting Debt Service Fund in Character 3 to be used to make the final debt service payment on the 2015 criminal justice note. You will remember that we had a $12 million note out there to pay off some people that did some work on it. So this is part of that, and some of the money, but the $12 million will be paid off in total. So this will be done, and so this is one of those deals where we finally got in a position where we could pay this note off, this particular note off. So it passed 8-0, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to proposal 366? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for a vote. The motion carries 22 to 0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 369, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 369, 2018 approves a transfer of additional appropriations totaling $3,471,810 in 2018 budget of the Marion County Court Guardian ad litem, County General and Conditional Release Funds to cover the cost of Guardian ad litem, services, radios, jury pay, interpreter services, drug and medical services, and other contractual services. Holly Fellows, Deputy Director of Finance of the Marion County Superior Court, stated that they are requesting an additional appropriation in the amount of $2,410,000 in the court's Guardian ad litem fund to cover their children in need of services, expenses for the remainder of 2018. She said they are requesting to appropriate the remaining $443,810 in the court's conditional release fund to cover the cost of electronic monitoring and drug testing, transferring a total of $585,000 to Character 3, $560,000 to Character 1, and $25,000 from Character 2, used to cover the cost of jury pay, drug testing, juvenile detention food, and medical service contracts. Councilor Oliver moved, second by Councilor Mosquera, to send proposal number 369 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. Motion carried by a vote of 9 to 0. Mr. President, I so move.
The motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? Councilor Coates.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a few questions just to refresh my memory from the committee hearing on this. So the 2.41 for Guardian ad litem. First of all, is there anyone from the controller's office who would probably be best equipped to answer this question?
All right. Don't see one, but we'll ask if the CFO might be able to assist you.
Okay,
So
great.
please go ahead.
So it's additional 2.41. I think what was in the budget was in the $4 million range, from my recollection. What was this funded at last year for the entire year? If you recall.
Yeah, I don't have that information. I could go back and look at the additional appropriation that we did last year, if that helps.
Okay.
I believe that the budget amount was around 3 to 4 million, though. But if you allow me, it'll only take me a few seconds to look to see what that additional appropriation for 2017 was.
Okay. I am in favor of this, but my question is more along back to the budget discussion from roughly 13 months ago, where a number of these public safety items seemed to be out of whack, being underfunded, and possibly for the prospect of providing for a balanced budget, knowing that additional appropriations would be needed later in the year. Here we are, and the additional appropriation is needed. So that's why I and some others had some heartburn during the public safety budget hearings in 2017. So thank you.
All right. Do you want him to take a moment to look up that number from last year?
That would be great. Thank you.
All right. Are there any additional comments, questions?
So the number that council appropriated as an additional appropriation was 2.6 million last year.
For a total of?
I don't unfortunately have the total.
Okay.
But so it was 2.6, and I can tell you it was over 5 million for the total, closer to 6.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any additional comments or questions from councilors? All right. Seeing none, is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak to proposal number 369? All right. Seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for a vote. Motion carries 22 to 0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 371, referred to Public Works Committee. Chairman Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 371 approves an additional appropriations of $5,133,352 in the 2018 budget of the Department of Public Works Consolidated County General and Transportation General Funds to finance the purchase of fuel, accelerated design expenses for projects in the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan, and construction expenses incurred by the Indianapolis Neighborhood Infrastructure Partnership, or INIP program, financed in part by a transfer from the Rainy Day Fund and revenues generated by the INIP program. DPW is requesting an additional appropriation of $1,939,015 to be added to the Indianapolis Fleet Services and Character 2 budget. The engineering division has requested an additional $3 million to finance design costs for the 2019 bond funded projects in the Transportation Capital Improvement Program. The engineering division also requests an additional appropriation of $194,337 to cover construction expenses incurred by the Indianapolis Neighborhood Infrastructure Partnership Program. The program stipulates that the neighborhoods that were awarded a grant by DPW commit a minimum of 50% in cash or contributions toward the project cost. It was stated that they are essentially asking for the revenue to be appropriated on the expense side. Councilor Coates moved, seconded by Councilor Gray, to send Proposal 371, 2018 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. That motion carried by a vote of 10-0, and I so move.
Motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak to Proposal 371? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for a vote. Motion carries 22-0. We will now proceed to special orders, unfinished business. There's no business under special orders, unfinished business. We'll now proceed to special orders, final adoption. And the next item on our agenda is proposal number 349, referred to Administration and Finance Committee. Chairman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 349 was heard at the Admin and Finance Committee on October 23rd, authorizing the county commissioners to dispose of certain parcel of property they have that have an appraisal value of $150,000 or more, and there was just one property, and so it passed. It had a due pass, 8-0. Thank you. I so move.
Motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for a vote. Motion carries 22-0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 365, referred to Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee. Chairwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 365 authorizes an economic development bond in an amount not to exceed $19 million for the acquisition, renovation, refinancing, and equipment of a multifamily housing facility of 304 apartment units for low and moderate income individuals and families located in District 23, known as Regency Park Apartments. After much discussion, the proposal passed out of committee by a vote of 7-3. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? Councilor Fanning.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to speak on behalf of our former colleague, former Councilor Scott Kreider. This is in his former district, and this was a project that he worked really hard with the city to get across the line, and I look forward to supporting this tonight. There's a lot of intricacies involved in this project, but I wanted to, on camera, talk about the addition of a sidewalk that will allow the residents of this and surrounding communities to get to public transportation and the bus stop and convenience stores safely. So this is an improvement for people other than just the residents of this community, and I look forward to supporting this.
Very good. Councilor McHenry.
Thank you, President Osley. I still have a problem when I know that people who have lived there, and if they don't qualify, then as if their income even would be over $1 over what the income level would be, they'd be asked to move. And I have a real problem with that. I think they should be grandfathered in, because if you take senior citizens, people who have lived there maybe 10, 20 years, that is a very traumatic. Moving is a very traumatic thing. They may not actually have the money to afford to have a moving van come and move them. Finding additional housing that is accessible to them from the standpoint of close to family, doctors, other things. And I really, unless people are grandfathered in that have lived there, then I am going to have to vote no.
Councilor Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my understanding that the funding mechanisms that are related to this project do not allow for the grandfathering in of residents. And in order to make the improvements that are desperately needed for this property, they aren't allowed to make those kind of guarantees. Is that what your understanding is, Mr. CFO?
All right. Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. We addressed this in committee, and I do believe that during the presentation, they stated that it would be less than 20 individuals that may or may not be impacted by this change, but also there is additional housing in that area that they would definitely qualify for. So we're not talking, even though it's not great that some individuals may be displaced, there are other options if they do not qualify for this housing addition.
Thank you. Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. President. In committee, I think it was pointed out that I believe the percentage of 90% or thereof was used to describe that most of the people living there, 90%, already qualified for the 60% AMI that we're going to be utilizing on this, and that the 60% is also an average. So people could be at 80, 85%, but they'll take that into account with those who may be at the 40 or 50% mark as well. So I even when they said 20, I thought that number was actually really high. I think we're dealing with people who might be in single digits.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional comments? Councilor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This project will also allow more affordable housing downtown. Currently, there's not a whole lot, and this project will, near the downtown areas on the south side, but south of downtown. So thank you. I'll be in support tonight.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right. All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. Motion carries 19-3. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 368. Referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal 368, 2018 approves a transfer of $1,600,000 in the 2018 budget of the Indianapolis Fire Department, other federal grants, DPS, a sub-fund of state and federal grants fund to support the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System Cooperative Agreement. IFD Chief Ernest Malone, stated that the IFD is asking to move $1.6 million from Character 1 to Character 3 to allow payments to occur, and since this is a federal grant money, the $1.6 million is reimbursed. The chief said that this will help facilitate their ability to take care of expenditures and allow for the reimbursement to occur. Councilor Simpson moved, seconded by Councilor Coates, to send proposal 368 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. The motion carried by a vote of 9-0. Mr. President, I so move.
The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. Councilor Adamson. Motion carries 22-0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 370, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson. The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. Motion carries 22-0. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 372, referred to Public Works Committee. Chairman Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. With consent, I'd like to take proposals number 372 and 373. Thank you. Proposal number 372 authorizes parking restrictions on Michigan Street and Pennsylvania Street around the Indiana War Memorial in District 11. Proposal number 373 establishes a multimodal transit facilities fund in which revenues from the daily operating fee paid by shared mobility system operators must be deposited to provide funding source for multimodal transportation projects. Both proposals passed out of committee with a vote of 10-0, and I so move.
Councilor McQuillan.
Mr. President, may we know the secret? Thank you.
Council and CFO have asked that we vote on these separately, since one is the establishment of a new fund. And so we will vote first on proposal number 372, which is the authorization of parking restrictions on Michigan Street around the Indiana War Memorial. So are there comments from councilors? Councilor Scales.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a question since we are taking these separately. I know that oftentimes we have events taking place at the Indiana War Memorial, and parking is at a premium anyway. I was just wondering if someone could tell me the reason behind the additional parking restrictions.
May we have someone from Public Works, please? Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dan Parker, Director of Indianapolis DPW. This is actually something to put into ordinance that is actually already occurring. The War Memorial has reserved parking on Michigan Street for those that attend events at the War Memorial and some of their staff members. Unfortunately, because those signs that have been placed on Michigan Street are not codified in ordinance, IMPD cannot enforce those that are parking there currently that are not attending an event at the War Memorial. So what this ordinance essentially does is allow IMPD to ticket folks who are parking illegally in the spots reserved for the War Memorial.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions from councilors? All right. Seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for our vote. The motion carries 22-0. Now, we will now proceed to the vote on proposal number 373. If you don't mind, would you read that again, please, the digest?
Certainly. Proposal 373 establishes a multimodal transportation facilities fund into which revenues from the daily operating fee paid by shared mobility system operators must be deposited to provide a funding source for multimodal transportation projects. If you'll remember, through the establishment of the ordinance that brings into legal framework the scooter companies, requires that they pay a daily scooter fee of $1 a day. And there's no place to put those $1 a days. And so we're creating a fund that will house those until DPW can use them on projects that are infrastructure related to scooters or bike paths. Councilor Kreider moves, seconded by Councilor Cordy to send proposal 373 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. That motion carried by a vote of 10 to 0. And I so move.
The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors?
Mr. President,
Councilor Simpson.
I don't want us to rush out of here at 8 o'clock. I think I can talk about 5 minutes. Let's make sure we get around 8:01. Councilor Adamson, how much money is going to be going into this account? Do you have any idea? I mean, you know, is it monthly? Is it going to be raising? I mean, per year, I guess, is the question. Is the director still here? Take your time, man. We got time.
Director, if you could come forward again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Simpson. The scooter companies are supposed to be invoiced quarterly by BNS. They're to provide their user data to BNS. What this establishes is where, when they're invoiced for the number of scooters that they're used each day, that the dollars would be deposited quarterly into the fund. Also, when the council established the MOA between DPW and Indigo, they're called for yearly payments from Indigo to the DPW budget, and the city controller asked that those funds be deposited into this fund as well, so that we could track the dollars in an easier way than just placing it all into the Transportation General Fund.
So how much money are we talking about a year?
It all depends on how many scooters are out there and how many days they use them. It's a question for the scooter companies. Are they going to put scooters out in the wintertime? We're basing it off of, it could be anywhere from, $400,000 to $800,000 per year.
All right, thank you.
All right, any additional questions from councilors? Councilor Sharif.
Mr. I believe it's 1,500 apiece, isn't it? Is that right? Or is it 500 apiece?
You're getting your steps in today, sir.
That is a question for BNS, not for DPW. We are to be the beneficiaries of their dollar per day. We are not the regulatory department. So, Councilor Sharif, I can't answer that, but BNS is the appropriate department to answer that.
We'll take note and get you an answer tomorrow. Any additional questions or comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to the board for a vote. The motion carries 22 to 0. There is no business under special service district councils. There is no business under new business.
Mr. President.
Councilor Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to reference something that I had mentioned in the resolution that we did earlier regarding the 2 victims of hate crimes. I wanted to read their names: Maurice Stallard and Vicki Jones, 2 African-American senior citizens who were murdered in cold blood on Wednesday last week while leaving a grocery store in Jeffersontown, Kentucky. Stallard was with his 12-year-old grandson, who witnessed the execution of his grandfather, and I wanted to make sure their names were read into the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Simpson.
Just want to recognize the Youth Council. Hope to see you again. I got a promise with y'all, so, we'll keep it to ourselves, but hope to see you again real soon. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilor. If you would not mind, I would like to
Mr. President.
Councilor Feaster.
If I may make an announcement as
Please.
well. I'd like to issue a personal invitation to everyone here and anyone that might be watching. Local 416 is going to be dedicating my late husband's fire truck on November the 7th at 5 p.m. at Local 416, 748 Mass Avenue. So you're all invited.
Fantastic. That is great honor. Great honor. All right. Tonight is the final council meeting for our long-serving General Counsel and Parliamentarian, Fred Biesecker. Fred joined the council staff in 2012, and since that time has advised this body with unfailing commitment on issues large and small. He's been extraordinarily unflappable in a business replete with flapping. A truly dedicated public servant whose good humor and first-rate judgment have made all of our jobs easier, and he will be missed. Please join me in recognizing Fred's service to this body and to our city. The docketed agenda for this meeting of the council having been completed, the chair will now entertain motions for adjournment.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilor McQuillan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have been asked to offer the following motions for adjournment. By all councilors in memory of Mary E. Gwynn. By Vice President Adamson in memory of Pamela Gimmer. By Councilor McQuillan in memory of the Honorable Michael J. Nichols, John Richard Noggle, and Jim Edwards. By Councilors McQuillan and McHenry in memory of Shirley Romine. By Councilors McQuillan and Shreve in memory of Richard Essex. By Councilor Feaster in memory of Joseph Fife, Kenneth Jolly, and Vernon Sears. By Councilor Mascari in memory of Charles Chuck Hartley and Ida Monroe. By Councilor Osley in memory of Yvonne Ferguson Watkins and Evelyn Kane. Mr. President, I would like to move the adjournment of this meeting of the Indianapolis City County Council in recognition of and respect for the life and contributions of those persons I have here specifically named. I respectfully ask the support of fellow councilors. I further request that the motion be made a part of the permanent record of this body and that a letter bearing the council seal and the signature of the president be sent to the family of each person advising of this action.
Thank you, Councilor McQuillan. Hearing no objections, the motion is received and the requests are so ordered. Hearing no further motions, we are adjourned.
You hit it under an hour, barely.
Barely.